Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Soul School Network. We have a small group of determined individuals here with us today. And of course, a lot of people will watch the goings on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. My name is Greg, and I'll be introducing Michael today. Michael Swinwood is our guest. We've had him, of course, on a number of occasions. He's one of the founders of Soul School Network, and he's got a lot of great things to talk about today. Our topic is conspiracy theorist or conspiracy analyst. And so Michael's going to break that down for us. But first, let's do a grounding meditation. Sue, you've got the tape ready to roll?
I do, and unfortunately, Koryanka cannot be with us today, and so we'll share her recorded meditation if I can get technological cooperation, which I think I can. Here we go. I think
There should be.
I can't see things. Sorry, I have to stop the share. I can't see the
It
play.
was. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Was full screen, so just so you know.
Yeah, I can't play it, Greg.
Oh.
I can't. Oh, here we go. It's the play button's being covered
Aha.
By Zoom.
We hit the enter button.
Sorry, I can't see it. Oh boy. Want to skip it? I can't seem to get it.
Sure, we can move forward. Michael will be grounding us with some of what he has to share. So
all right, sorry, we'll have to edit that out if you don't mind.
No worries at all.
Okay.
Once again, the topic conspiracy theorist or conspiracy analyst. I looked it up. The definition of a conspiracy theorist really is someone who believes that certain events aren't what the mainstream media is reporting or what official sources are saying they are. Often these people are described as having a distrust of institutions, or they believe that the truth is being withheld. And there are those who say they choose this way of thinking because they have a dis-ease with the way the world is, feeling of powerlessness. Michael is someone who, many people would say doesn't necessarily always believe what the government says or the institutions say, and has probably in the past been labeled as a conspiracy theorist. Michael, you can take it from here, but you have a different perspective on what these individuals are, correct?
Yeah, you might say that. You might say I have a different perspective.
Forget about democracy, forget about human rights, forget about concerns.
Whoever's on the iPhone, if you could mute because we can hear the background. There, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, good morning, everyone. Yeah, I definitely would be classed as someone who doesn't accept what government says in mainstream media and everything else. I mean, I'll identify myself quite readily as a conspiracy analyst and not a theorist. I don't go on the basis that I don't believe this, that, or the other thing. I go on the basis that I don't accept what's being put forward to humanity. I guess we'll start with the premise that from my perspective, there is an agenda on humanity. And that agenda on humanity is a control agenda. designed to bring everyone into, let's just say, mainstream thinking. And the way that we do this is through basically brainwashing. We brainwash people into being of a certain mindset so that things can proceed smoothly with the narrative that is being put to people. If I can basically say that if you look at where we are in 2026, which is pretty chaotic, we're in a very chaotic beginning with our friend Donald Trump invading Venezuela and putting gasoline to fire is basically coming from an agenda. And that agenda, unfortunately, is not being shared with anybody. But you can basically see that the geopolitical situation in the world is ramping up to a high heat. And these are basically undertakings that are designed to bring about circumstances that allow for the agenda to be implemented. I'm going to take us all the way back to 1205. And I'm going to say to you that really the agenda that's on humanity has its, not its beginning, because it goes back thousands of years. And this has been going on for a long, long time. But in our existence, the year 1205 is important because that's the year that the Pope, the Holy Roman Empire, excommunicated the King of England. And the King of England was pretty upset by this excommunication. And so he crawled on his hands and knees back to the Pope and said, well, how do I get back in? And the Pope said, well, you give me an oath of fealty and I'll let you back in. So that oath of fealty reads as follows: I, King John I, sovereign of Great Britain and Ireland, hereby give up the sovereignty of Great Britain and Ireland in perpetuity, binding all my heirs and successors. And Great Britain will pay 700 silver marks annually, and Ireland will pay 300 silver marks annually. And so this has been going on since 1205. The King of England reports to the Pope of Rome, which leads us to later on in the historical record. In 1544, Ignatius of Loyola founded the Jesuits, and the Jesuits became what is known as the Army of the Pope. And the Jesuits, I would suggest to you, are the bureaucratic implementers of the agenda. They basically have infiltrated just about every country in the world. If you look at the historical record in relation to the Jesuits, you will see, and based on a book by John Eric Phelps entitled The Vatican Assassins, the Army of the Pope, wherein John Eric Phelps chronicles each century from 1544 to 2010, the nefarious deeds of the Jesuits. You have to know the Jesuits have 5 divisions. They're not just all clerical. The 2 of them are essentially clergy, and the other 3 are known as lay Jesuits. And so they infiltrate government everywhere. And just as an example, during COVID, we had Dr. Anthony Fauci, who was front and center on the COVID hoax. And we see in 1995 that George W. Bush awarded the Medal of Honor to Dr. Anthony Fauci, a high Jesuit. And that's how he was identified in the New York Times. So there we had front and center Dr. Fauci running the COVID program, basically responsible, in fact, for the research that in Winnipeg, Manitoba, that was then released to Wuhan lab in China. And then we had the beginnings of the hoax on COVID. Now, COVID is a perfect example of how conspiracy theory works. Because what you had is you had forewarning. There was absolutely forewarning of what was to come in 2021, 2020, 2021. In 2019, there was in New York City a gathering, and that gathering was basically the elite, Bill Gates and his foundation, etc., that organized this particular gathering to do a mock-up on COVID-19. And so it wasn't very long after the gathering that this was leaked to humanity, that had occurred, but no one paid any attention to it until COVID came along. So what we had is a test run. And what COVID was really all about was seeing if humanity could be controlled by what we call the so-called natural disaster that put all of humanity under the gun. And then we had all the protocols about masking and distancing. And then we had the vaccine. So problem, solution. And this is Freemasonry 101. Now, the Freemasons go back to 1600s, 1700s. Certainly in the 1700s, it took its biggest step forward in becoming an organized undertaking, which is involved in the conspiracy as against humanity. Again, the issue of control, the issue of being able to control humanity from its perspective of laying on an agenda on humanity, which is designed to line up with the vibration of fear, so that the ones who are running the show, quote unquote, running the show, are basically operating on the concept that the vibration of fear is the one that leads humanity into the corral of control. The control corral has a door opening with the right over top, fear. And that acronym, fear, is actually false evidence appearing real. And that's essentially the definition of a conspiracy theory. Because in the end, the theory or the idea or the conspiracy is based on the vibration of fear, and therefore is always attended with crisis. It's always attended with something that is to put you back on your heels. What I see basically coming in the future is that the crisis will be accompanied by probably two undertakings. One is likely to be a revisitation of the COVID hoax with some other disease or virus that they'll introduce in order to put everybody back to where they were with masks and distancing and all of that kind of stuff. And likely an economic collapse, because economic collapse is upon us. If you just have to look at how much money the United States of America owes, and which is in the $38 million range, how much they have to pay on an annual basis to service that debt, which is $1.3 trillion annually, you'll come to the realization that things are at the tipping point. They're not going to be running smoothly from here on in. And so the elite and those behind the agenda of control on humanity will be placing these kinds of crises in front of humanity. Going back to the Freemasons, if you go to the back of the American dollar bill, you will see that the founders of America were all Freemasons. Look at the back of the American dollar bill and you'll see the seeing eye through the triangle. You'll see very many symbols of Freemasonry. The twin columns, the 13 feathers and 13 arrows held by the eagle, etc., etc., etc. It's all there for the looking and the seeing. The question is, does it become part of a human being's consciousness. It's always right in front of you. It's always being told to you what's going to happen. And we miss it. We don't pick up on the signals because we don't want to. We prefer that it's not what conspiracy theorists or analysts consider to be the truth. It's too frightening to bring into your consciousness that this is actually what's really happening. A lot of presidents of the United States were Freemasons. There is the organization at Yale University called Skull and Bones. And Skull and Bones is a Freemason, basically a Freemason club. And George Bush, all the Bushes, Prescott Bush, George Bush, the senior, George Bush, the junior, Jeb Bush, all of them belong to Skull and Bones at Yale University. And they're a central core of what goes on in the Freemason world. It is a secret club. You are not allowed to be initiated unless you've been chosen. And these are power structures that influence the agenda on humanity. Also should incorporate here the Order of the Garter. So the Order of the Garter is founded in 1344 in England, and the king established the Order of the Garter for the purposes of surrounding himself with land barons and the richest people in the kingdom in order that he had some security around him. The Order of the Garter is probably the biggest Freemason organization on the planet. And the Order of the Garter, of course, continues today. June 21st of every year is the day of the Order of the Garter. And the royalty in England trots out all their paraphernalia, which are gowns and robes and all sorts of insignia pointing to the Order of the Garter. Now, as I said to you in 1205, the King of England gave over the sovereignty of Great Britain and Ireland. And so what we have is a situation where the Order of the Garter undertaking is through the king reporting to the Pope. So you basically have the Orange Lodge and the Jesuits and the Knights of Columbus, who you would say, oh, well, they're in opposition. Nay, nay, nay. Because of the oath of fealty of 1205, they're like this. And so the Orange Hall and the Knights of Columbus actually collaborate behind the scenes on the issue of how they're going to run the show. So from this perspective, you can see that it's plain and obvious that there are societies that have been founded for the purpose of rendering humanity under its control. And basically what we're seeing in our future is artificial intelligence and digital identification, all very, very dire and dark projections of how the agenda on humanity is to be carried out and deepen the concept of control. So all of the organizations that I have mentioned, the Jesuits, the Knights of Columbus, the Orange Hall, the Order of the Garter, they're all in on the idea that humanity needs to be put under control. And I'm going to go off on a tangent here because I'm going to mention now David Icke. Now, for those of you who know David Icke, you should be well aware that for the last 30 years, David Icke has been talking about these matters in the books that he has published. One of his biggest books was called The Biggest Lie. And in The Biggest Lie, David Icke exposes royalty as actually having connection to reptilian beings who are said to be off-planetary beings who are really the ones that are creating the agenda on the control of the Mother Earth and the control of humanity. It is basically said that there are underground bases inside the Earth where actually alien entities reside and carry out their nefarious undertakings from the cover of the inner Earth. It is to say that Inca teachings speak to the concept of the fourth dimension. We live in the third dimension, breadth, width, and length. And the fourth dimension is at a higher vibration. And the fourth dimension is said to be in the inner Earth, and that we have a representation of the light and the dark in the inner Earth. That, in other words, fourth dimensional beings who have powers that are beyond what is normally understood by human beings, to be possessed by entities that have these powers by virtue of being from another place. If you examine the explosion since the Second World War until now in relation to technology, I'm going to posit that that technology and that information and that intelligence comes from the off-planetary beings who make an agreement with the elite to provide certain things in order to place themselves in a position of being in control. Google, artificial intelligence, all of these things run by oligarchs, the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Bill Gateses, the Elon Musks, all of these individuals end up in a situation that I'm going to posit is like a cabal who make an agreement with intelligences that are superior to humanity and are able to provide the kind of technology that we see exploding onto the horizon of humanity, if you will. And so from that perspective, you can see that there is an agenda that is not open. It's not really something that humanity is aware of. Not many people are taking to David Icke. Not many people want to accept what he has to say in his books. However, he definitely hits on the money. And I highly recommend reading some of his books if you want to understand at a more deep level what I'm referring to. Now, in the book, John Eric Phelps, The Vatican Assassins, he goes from 1544 right to 2010, and he chronicles how the Jesuits in each century infiltrated government, took over government, and ran the show. And as a consequence of such behavior, they were booted out of countries like France, Italy, Germany. They ended up in a situation where at one point, the only place that would protect them was Russia. And so they all ended up in Russia. The Pope kicked them out of the Vatican in the 1800s. And then another Pope came along and he reinstated them, and they went back to full power in the 1800s. And they continue today. Pierre Trudeau was a Jesuit. Justin Trudeau is a Jesuit. Mark Carney, as far as I'm concerned, is a Jesuit. So they already have their people in place, if you will, in terms of Canada. There's no doubt in my mind that they run the show in the excited states of America. And I call it the excited states of America because in the Declaration of Independence, there's a line that says, "You excited the savages against us." And there's the core problem with the United States, who basically genocided the indigenous people. And they wear that stain to this day. They will continue to wear that stain until such time as there's a comeuppance about the concept of genocide and apartheid, which has a big, deep root in the United States, in Canada, and in South America. If you, for instance, in Peru, you can go into the town of Urubamba, which is in the Sacred Valley, and every second doorway in the arch in the doorway, you will see the Jesuit symbol, because essentially the Jesuits infiltrated all of South America, got rid of the Inca, got rid of the spirituality that the Inca represented, and injected the people with Catholicism. And the people are very much Catholic throughout Latin America by virtue of the involvement of the Jesuits. In the Indigenous experience in Canada, who were the first chronicle, who had the first chronicle of the involvement with Europeans and the Indigenous people, were the Jesuits. And now when you are involved in a court case, such as I am, where experts come forward to speak about history, all of the experts rely on volumes 1 to 77 of the Jesuit Relations, because the Jesuits write everything down. And what they did in their involvement with the Indigenous people in Canada was to chronicle their involvement with the Indigenous people from about 1608 to about 1660, 1670. And they wrote down everything about their encounters with the Indigenous people. And in particular, they identified the Iroquois, which is the nation that I've been working with now for quite a long time. So you see that you can find examples of the presence of the Jesuits in our government system, in our court system. And I would suggest to you the same applies in the United States. And of course, the classic example is Dr. Fauci in the COVID hoax, given his front and center performance, let's just say, which is a very identifiable Jesuit, high-ranking Jesuit. Also, in Washington finds itself in the District of Columbia. It's not a state, it's the District of Columbia. And how did that come about? That came about in the Town of Washington Act of 1870, when the city of Washington and the District of Georgetown came together and were joined to form the District of Columbia. And Georgetown, of course, is the headquarters for the Jesuits in the United States. Loyola University, Boston University, a lot of academic institutions are Jesuit run in the United States. And a lot of academia, and thereby those who went through that academia end up as high-ranking senior officials in the American administration. I'll bring you to two instances of very, very nefarious deeds undertaken by the Jesuits, which underscores the point I'm wishing to make. Another book written, this one by a Roman Catholic priest, entitled My 50 Years in the Roman Church. And this is quite a fascinating story. Father Chineke was a Roman Catholic priest who had a parish outside Quebec City. And the archbishops who ran the show that he had to report to were basically Jesuits. And he bumped heads with these superiors by virtue of his distaste for the way things were run out of Rome. He became an anti-papist, if you will. And this rubbed the superiors the wrong way. And so they put a lot of pressure on Father Chineke, and they wanted to get rid of him. This was obvious to him, and he had quite a following in his parish. And so they were given an offer from somebody in Illinois to relocate and continue with his flock in a piece of land in Illinois. And so he took up the offer. He wanted to continue to be a Catholic priest, so he had to report to the bishops in Chicago, and that they were Jesuits. And so he ran into the same thing, except it was worse. He was butting heads with the superiors. They had enough of him. They finally decided that what they were going to do was to get rid of him, was to conspire and make up sexual assault charges against him, which got him in trouble, put him before the courts. He went to a local lawyer and he was asking for help, and the lawyer said, "You need the best lawyer in Illinois." He said, "Well, who's that?" He said, "Abraham Lincoln." So Abraham Lincoln became his lawyer. And Abraham Lincoln did a marvelous job in his trial. But at the end, Abraham Lincoln came to Father Chineke and said to him, "I don't like the situation we're in. I think that jury is believing the Jesuits who have testified against you falsely, but they have put you in the soup. I think you should go home and pray for a miracle." And so he did. He did. He went home and prayed, and a knock on the door came, and it was a woman telling him that she was aware of the Jesuit conspiracy, that she had overheard them planning and plotting, and that she was prepared to testify in his trial. And she did. And he was acquitted. And he was in the anteroom after the verdict, sitting there despondent and depressed. When Abraham Lincoln came in very ebullient and happy and said, "What's wrong with you, Father Chineke? You should be thrilled. You've just won the biggest victory of your life." And Father Chineke said, "You don't understand." He said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You've just signed your death warrant." He said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, you may not have noticed, but in the public gallery, there were 10 Jesuits. And those Jesuits hate you. You've signed your death warrant." And of course, later on, shot through the head by John Wilkes Booth was Abraham Lincoln. When John Wilkes Booth jumped from the balcony where he had shot Abraham Lincoln onto the stage, his mask slipped off, and the stagehands all recognized it as John Wilkes Booth, a local actor. It didn't take the authorities long, based on that tip, to trace his whereabouts to Avenue H in Washington. And when they went there, they discovered the home of John and Mary Surratt, and soon discovered that it was a meeting place for the Jesuits plotting the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. And they were able to track down John Wilkes Booth, and they subsequently shot him. But they were hot to trot after John Surratt. But unbeknownst to them, they only later found out, a Catholic priest from Montreal, Quebec, a Jesuit, was dispatched to Washington to take John Surratt out of the United States, back to Montreal. He was hid in a diocese there for months, and then they shipped him over to Rome. And then subsequently, Washington authorities were able to get him and extradite him out of Rome, and they put him on trial in the United States, in Washington. And so there is a transcript available for those who are doubters to go and check out. And the story that I've just told you unfolds within that trial. And of course, John Surratt was found guilty of being a co-conspirator on the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, planned and executed by the Jesuits. Fast forward 100 years, and we're now at the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. In John Eric Phelps's book, The Vatican Assassins, on page 10, he creates a rogues gallery of those who were involved in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. At the top of the list is Cardinal Spellman, a Jesuit, and Alan Dulles, a Jesuit, who was the head of the CIA at the time, and every other conspirator, which amounted to about 10 or 12 of them, were all Knights of Malta. And of course, the Knights of Malta is another secret society tied to Rome, to the Vatican. And you'll notice, if you pay attention, that there are 3 capital cities in the world who share in the agenda that I'm speaking about. The city of London, which is all by itself an independent state, if you will, independent from London itself. the Vatican, which sits in Rome as an independent state, and Washington, District of Columbia, not a state, but sits independently. And so Washington, Rome, and London is where all of these things are basically happening. The Bank of England is one of the rogues in terms of the currency and in terms of the monetary system in the world. We have something called the BIS, which is the Bank of International Settlements, which we find in Switzerland. And the Bank of International Settlements is a compilation of the heads of all the central banks throughout the world. The Bank of England, the Bank of Canada, the Federal Reserve Board. So let's talk about the Federal Reserve Board for a moment. And talking about conspiracy theories. Well, it's not a theory, but a happening. And what happened in 1913 on Jekyll Island off of Georgia, the elite at that time, the J.P. Morgans, the Rockefellers, etc., they got together and they created legislation to implement the Federal Reserve Board. And the Federal Reserve Board is not owned by the United States. It's not part of the United States. It is made up of international bankers. And those international bankers print the US currency, and therefore the United States of America is in the depth of debt that they find themselves in by virtue of the printing of all this money. And the Federal Reserve Board is definitely tied to the tragedy of the Titanic, because what we had in the Titanic at its sinking was we had 3 or 4 major oligarchs who were against the implementation of the Federal Reserve Board. And they went down with the ship, which conveniently rammed into an iceberg. But it was really something that was very intended. When you read John Eric Phelps about the Jesuits, you'll find that what they speak to is they speak to regicide, assassinations, poisonings, all of these kinds of things. You'll see that Vladimir Putin is a master at poisoning. Many of his so-called opposition leaders have found themselves unalived by poison. And I would suggest to you that this is taken out of the playbook of the Jesuits. As you can tell, I'm not a theorist. I'm an analyst. And I look at all these things and I come to understand that there is a challenge to humanity. There are 2 vibrations on the Mother Earth. There's love and there's fear. And unfortunately, fear covers the earth by virtue of endless wars, endless natural disasters, so-called some of them. And I would suggest to you that if you examine the fire that devastated Lahaina in Hawaii, that you'll come to find that that was man-made, that you'll come to find that that was purposely done for the purposes of destroying something idyllic and putting in place a smart city. There are many weather events that occur. You see some hurricanes with incredible wind strength, which I would suggest to you is artificially promoted by the elite from the perspective of raising the bar in terms of fear. So if there are 2 vibrations on the Mother Earth, they're love and fear. What is it that we have to avoid? Well, we have to avoid having the vibration of fear vibrate within ourselves, within our own being, within our own existence. And we have to, not have to, if we bring about a perspective of identifying that the vibration of love is something that is covering the cosmos, not just the Mother Earth, but that love is what actually is injected throughout the cosmos, which allows for the cosmos to have the shape that it does, which is organized. Planets don't bump into each other. Everything is put into a situation of synchronicity. And therefore, we have the precision of the equinoxes. We have, if you will, circular happenings, a circle within a circle within a circle. Like when you drop a piece of a rock or a pebble into a pond and you see it ripple out. This is in essence the way that the energy in the cosmos acts, and we benefit from the vibrations that come from the source. And that source is one intelligence, one beingness, which informs the consciousness of humanity and the consciousness throughout the cosmos. I certainly don't stand for the proposition that humanity is the only show in town on Mother Earth. That's abjectly ridiculous. Abjectly ridiculous to think that we're the only show in town. How arrogant can we be? And there's much evidence to demonstrate the existence of other beings in the cosmos that we live in. So what is the vibration of love? The vibration of love is what sustains and upholds and allows us to be. And therefore, how do we concentrate ourselves into the vibration of love? It is basically said that we're not going to change the world. The only thing that we can really change is ourselves. But as we do so, we join a coterie of other individuals who have a similar idea, and that is to work on themselves. Because as they change themselves, they change the world. Everything is about vibration and frequency. All of us vibrate at a certain rate. Our consciousnesses vibrate at a particular rate. And so this vibration is something that is emanating from the source, and it is godlike, this vibration, which we can access by virtue of putting ourselves into a meditative state, being able to practice meditation so that we can go into the inner and discover the power that exists within the human being. I would suggest to you that every human being has a divine flame within. Some of us have it flickering. Others have managed to, through their individual interdiscipline, been able to fan that flame into something more than just a flicker. And that's essentially what connects all of us, is this idea that the one source has planted within us the connection to the divine. Right here in your third eye is the entranceway to the pineal gland. And the pineal gland in the brain, I would suggest, is the spiritual antenna, which links us to the source, to the one beingness, to the idea of love. And what interferes with the spiritual antenna of the pineal gland is regulated mostly in the pituitary gland, which is the chemical factory, where emotions trigger certain chemicals that go throughout the body. And when we're in fear, then these chemicals bring about a weakness within the body that we have to address in order to bring about a domination, if you will, of that vibration of fear, and introduce and intensify the vibration of love. I would say that in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, when he's talking to Arjuna, says the following: the Lord declared, Whenever true religion declines and irreligion prevails, I manifest myself, and in every age, I incarnate to establish spiritual law and to destroy evil. So I say to you that this is the promise of the coming avatar. We live in a Mahavantara. A Mahavantara is a passage of time within which the existence that we find ourselves in exists. So a Mahavantara is 4.3 billion years. And many spiritual leaders have said we're only halfway through that. We're coming to a time when we're leaving the Iron Age and we're going to the Golden Age. And in that swing of the pendulum, there is a purification. And that's what is upon us, is a purification. And that purification is designed to bring about a Mother Earth and circumstances that will allow for a golden age, will allow for an interaction with humanity and archangels and gods and spirits that exists in the higher realms. This is what's coming. But before it lands specifically on the Mother Earth and before it takes full hold, we will go through some bumpy times. It's pretty obvious to you on January 4th, 2026, that the bumpy times have already started and that they will increase. And therefore, the answer to all of this is an inner journey, one where you take hold and take stock of yourself and understand on the 7 egos that exist: lust, anger, pride, envy, greed, laziness, and gluttony. They all exist within every human being. It gives you an ability to take stock of where you are in your consciousness in relation to the 7 egos. The 7 egos operate completely on the vibration of fear. They do not operate on the vibration of love. In fact, the Inca taught that the very first step in the elevation of consciousness for the spiritually minded is the elimination of the 7 egos. And by elimination, I mean that we embark upon an inner journey and come to realize what kind of control those 7 egos have in relation to our thinking, in relation to our mind and our emotions. And when we come to an understanding by virtue of our own inventory taking, we come to realize how we can diminish the hold that the egos have on us and the vibration of fear that exists within us. We come to realize that we have the power to eliminate that vibration of fear with the vibration of love. I came upon the word equanimity. It just popped into my head one day. And I asked Susan if she would look it up. And equanimity came up as a definition of essentially balance, of being balanced. But equanimity, it further defined as standing on the ground of freedom and wisdom and the protector of love and compassion. So just imagine for a moment that you're able to take things that come to you with equanimity, with balance, rather than being tipped over to fear or tipped over to a higher expression, which takes you out of equanimity or out of balance. Imagine for a moment that the word reaction, when we are faced with certain things, we have a reaction. But imagine if you took the C in reaction and put it at the front, and what you would have would be creation. And so when we learn that it's best not to be in reaction, but to be in creation with things that we're faced with, then we will begin to solidify that inner journey. So on that note, I'm going to end here with a prayer that assists a human being in the elimination. And the prayer goes as follows. It's called the Tube of Light. Beloved, I am presence bright. Round me seal your tube of light. From ascended master flame, called forth now in God's own name. Let it keep my temple free from all discord sent to me. I'm calling forth violet fire to blaze and transmute all desire, keeping on in freedom's name till I am one with the violet flame. Thank you. That's it. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you, Michael. A very thorough discussion and something that will definitely give a lot of us something to reflect upon. Does anyone have any questions for Michael before we go? Looking for hands. I don't see any, so
I'll make a comment, Greg, if I may.
okay, sure. Yes, please.
Michael, I appreciated how you wrapped that up because I think in part, when I think about conspiracy theorist versus conspiracy analyst, like I feel within you the analyst piece because you're expressing it without fear. You're expressing it as a collection of information where you make obvious conclusions. And it takes you in a particular path and direction, which isn't one of fear and anger, but more one of observation and understanding. And I think if I reflect on the past number of years around COVID and a number of things, in these conversation, it seems often fear is reflecting against fear. It's like a mirror, you know. And so where you're not even balanced, aligned in equanimity, as you pointed out, then there's an emptiness that sounds like a theorist that is upset on their side of the equation as opposed to observing. An analyst who takes the information from a neutral standpoint and says, well, this is what's happening here. So I think that for the people who are seen by their family or friends or whatever as conspiracy theorists, they can up their own game by upping their relationship to the information, what it looks like, what they think is going to happen, and this more spiritual, deep dive into the understanding that life is for us. So while all these things look like they're against us, we can go within or go without. We can go deeper with it. We can decide that that there's an opportunity in everything, even though it looks horrid or against us. But to watch that we don't move into the victim energy, again, a fear energy that helps to the idea of conspiracy theorists, that whole thing to thrive more than the balanced conspiracy analyst. So I just wanted to comment that. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Now that's like spot on. I achieved what I wanted to achieve, which was exactly that. The theme of love and fear becomes operative within all of this, and it is exactly that, is to make observation of what is happening. You know, I'd go even further and say a lot of us here on this call may have cellular memory of being asked to incarnate in this time in order to cast the light, in order to be able to exist within what I'm talking about and not exist in fear, but understand the thriving towards the vibration of love. And this is something that, from my perspective, I see within everyone who's sitting here, that essentially that is your purpose. Your purpose is to gather the light, hold the light, shine the light. And within the framework of your own individual existence and journey, there is a need to go into the understanding of the vibration of love and fear and direct yourself toward the vibration of love.
Thank you, Michael. Well said. And I think to go with what you and Sue have said, you know, it's also a matter of respecting each other opinions and respecting what others may believe and who's barking. So I'll quickly wrap things up. Before we go, Sue, would you be able to maybe raise our vibration a little more and share the mantra of unification with us?
You're muted, Susan.
I would be happy to. And I will share it on the screen for those who would like to see it. Here we go. The souls of all are one, and I am one with them. I seek to love, not hate. I seek to serve and not exact due service. I seek to heal, not hurt. Let pain bring due reward of light and love. Let the soul control the outer form and life and all events, and bring to light the love which underlies the happenings of the time. Let vision come and insight. Let the future stand revealed. Let inner union demonstrate and outer cleavages be gone. Let love prevail. Let all people love. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. We're going to be back on January 18th. The details of what that program will be about will be posted on Soul School Network website, as well as our Facebook page, and on YouTube. You'll also be able to rewatch this program or any of the others that we've done over the past couple of years. I just want to say we appreciate those who share our posts to get new faces in the mix. So thank you again, everyone, and have a wonderful Sunday.